Stephen Miller might be the most morally reprehensible member of Donald Trump's administration, which is why I have so enjoyed him being humiliated for the past week, not just because Elon Musk stole his wife, and we are going to get into some breaking news on that story soon, but also because of the illegal deportation plan that he is the archetype of. It is backfiring in a huge way on him, and it is that reason why Stephen Miller's wife is finally breaking her silence. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we get into Stephen Miller, his wife, and the reason that she is breaking her silence, we need some context on it, and that starts in LA, where Donald Trump and Stephen Miller are sicking their masked thugs on peaceful protesters. And I want to see more reporting on the ground right here.
Or even about an hour ago, he said that we have been invaded by criminals and aliens, and that he wants to liberate the city of Los Angeles. That kind of language inflames tensions, makes things worse. When he has people that show up, not in normal ICE uniforms that they used to wear to, do a raid or do different things, but in kind of militarized uniforms, then that's what kind of sparks the increased tension. So we know that he's been planning on this for a while. They want this showdown between us, California, because they don't like what we represent. LA County alone is 34% foreign born, 34%. So when he says they're going to liberate us, who is he going to liberate us from? Ourselves? So one of the things we want to do is to make sure that people know that it's Donald Trump who's actually making the situation worse.
Yeah, and do you think...
I wanted to start with a view on the ground in Los Angeles, not only because it is very important context to this story, as we'll see, and also maybe the most important story in the country right now, but because we can't just think of Donald Trump's illegal deportation plan as his alone. Stephen Miller is right by his side, helping Donald Trump sick their ICE masked thugs on peaceful protesters. Stephen Miller is the architect of this plan of family separation, of these raids of high schools, middle schools, and elementary school graduations. They are trying to inflict pain on communities and leverage the chaos they cause into martial law, it seems like, is their end goal. It was just a little bit ago that Stephen Miller gave away the game of what him and Trump are trying to do in this clip right here, which is all the context we need for why this story with his wife just broke open.
Well, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not. At the end of the day, Congress passed a body of law known as the Immigration and Nationality Act, which stripped Article 3 courts, that's the judicial branch, of jurisdiction over immigration cases.
Stephen Miller and Donald Trump have made clear what they want to do. They want to create chaos, they want to inflict pain, and they want to make us scared so that they have some justification to institute martial law. For Donald Trump to be the dictator he has always wanted to be, and that was called out by journalist Trey Moran of ABC in this post right here, and it led to the reason Stephen Miller's wife is speaking out. The thing about Stephen Miller is not that he is the brains behind Trumpism. Yes, he is one of the people who conceptualizes the impulses of the Trumpist movement and translates them into policy, but it's not what's interesting about Miller. It's not brains, it's bile. Miller is a man who is richly endowed with a capacity for hatred. He is a world-class hater. Now, it was that post from Terry Moran that led to Carolyn Levitt's meltdown this morning, and we'll see why that is important context for what Stephen Miller's wife just said.
So-called journalist Terry Moran went on a rampage against Stephen Miller. What happened, Caroline?
Well, ABC is going to have to answer for what their, again, so-called journalist put out on Twitter in the wee hours of the night, calling Stephen Miller vile. They said that President Trump is a world-class hater. And this is, again, coming from someone who is supposed to be an unbiased and professional journalist. This is unacceptable and unhinged rhetoric coming from someone who works at a major television network. We have reached out to ABC. They have said they will be taking action, so we will see what they do.
So Carolyn Levitt melts down, attacks this journalist at ABC, calls for him to be silenced, and the network suspends him. But it didn't stop there, because after creating weeks of chaos within the Trump administration because of the Musk-Trump feud, Stephen Miller's wife, Katie Miller, tweeted for the first time in a month to address what is happening right now, breaking her silence over this scandal and saying this. Katie Miller wrote, "This is why Americans don't trust the legacy media. When masks are down, you see the radical left-wing bias at ABC. These are the people feeding propaganda across the airwaves under the guise of righteousness. Terry Moran should be fired from the network immediately." Really? The left-wing media bias? Donald Trump is so in with the Fox propaganda outlet, they're going to start reading him his morning briefings. You had an entire platform in Twitter that was bought up by Elon Musk for the sole purpose of pushing conspiracy theories and conservative propaganda, and you're saying it's the left that is imposing our viewpoint, and you're trying to silence these people. You don't believe in free speech. The right is such snowflakes. Like, these conservatives, they get in their feelings. They get all upset. Oh, I was called out. Stephen Miller is a vile man who spews bile. We all know this. Separated families. This is an evil individual. And it's funny that this is what his wife gets all upset about, Stephen Miller rightfully being called out. She didn't really want to say anything, though, about all the Elon drama. We were just going to let that run free. And it's funny because someone noticed that she actually changed a bit of her Twitter profile after this post went public, and you can see that right here. So a SpaceX rocket is the banner of Katie Miller's Twitter account. No, I don't want to infer what that means or doesn't mean, but it's pretty clear where her allegiances lies. There's a lot of posts, a lot of movement coming out of Katie Miller right now. That's a little humiliating to Stephen. I guess that little post defending him is to make up for the fact that she's leaving him for Elon. But let's get back to what really matters here, the disgusting deportation agenda. All at the same time, while Donald Trump whines about, the police officers who he's sending to instigate in L.A., what about January 6th? Are we not gonna remember this? Well, Jasmine Crockett sure is. She was calling Trump out for it right here.
It's interesting that one set of behavior somehow is going to get a family rich overnight. And the other folk that were there in that video, the members of Congress, well, they're saying arrest them. Let me remind you that those January 6ers have been pardoned. Let me remind you that yet another January 6er was just arrested a few days ago for committing what? Another crime. So if we're going to talk about us keeping our streets safe, let's be real about who's causing crimes, who actually went through what we call due process, because no one denied the January 6th insurrectionists of their due process. They went to court. They either pled guilty or were found guilty, and they were sent to prison. And half of them, actually all of them, if their sentences said so, should still be in prison. Because we as Americans would be safer. We won't get into the fact that another one was already in trouble because they had already killed somebody. But I'll continue on. Right now, our Republican colleagues want to forfeit their constitutional oversight responsibilities. Let's talk about what's actually happening. In March, we learned that the Trump administration was dismantling the Department of Homeland Security's Office of Civil Rights and Civil Liberties and terminating staff at the Office of the Citizenship and Immigration Services Ombudsman. And in the Office of Immigration Detention Ombudsman, because they argue, quote, these offices have obstructed immigration enforcement and, quote, undermined DHS's mission. The Office of Civil Rights and Civil Liberties investigates public complaints about possible violations of civil rights and civil liberties in DHS activities, including immigration enforcement and discrimination. And in the Immigration Detention Ombudsman's it is their primary responsibility to conduct oversight on conditions at immigration detention centers. So why would the Trump administration want to dismantle offices tasked with conducting oversight of immigration enforcement and detention facilities? The simple answer is, without them, there will be no internal oversight offices to assess the legality of the Trump administration's policies on immigration enforcement. So what have the results been? Since Trump took office on January 20th, 9 detainees have died in ICE custody. In fact, in Trump's first month in office, more detainees died in ICE custody than at any time since fiscal year 2020. Congressional Democrats have engaged in oversight activities of immigration facilities across the country, from Florida, where a 44-year-old Haitian woman died in ICE custody, to Newark, New Jersey, where 3 of our Democratic colleagues visited an immigration detention facility to ensure the humane treatment of detainees. This wasn't about going in and breaking nobody out, y'all, especially when there were cameras rolling everywhere. That's not what they were there to do. Now, in a breathtaking act of executive obstruction of congressional oversight and the unprecedented weaponization of the Department of Justice, we have an interim U.S. attorney for New Jersey who for years has argued in court that Donald Trump is above the law. She has announced criminal charges against Congresswoman McIver for, quote, impeding and interfering with law enforcement. However, our power as members of Congress to conduct oversight is found in the Constitution and federal law. In fact, federal law explicitly prohibits DHS from, quote, preventing a member of Congress from entering for the purpose of conducting oversight any facility operated by or for the Department of Homeland Security used to detain or otherwise house aliens, or to make any temporary modification at any such facility that in any way alters what is observed by a visiting member of Congress. It is against the law. Full stop. Separately, the court has consistently held that the speech and debate clause of the Constitution protects individual members from prosecution for legislative acts, including, quote, fact-finding, field investigations, and information gathering. The court has consistently held that the primary purpose of the speech and debate clause is to, quote, prevent intimidation by the executive and before a possibly hostile judiciary. So let's call this for what it is. This administration is criminalizing legislative oversight, and the Republicans on this committee are helping them to do so.
There are no grounding principles in MAGA. There are no values. They don't actually care about anything. It's all just a big show. It's a game. We got to call it out. We're going to continue to on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.